Hello, everyone. It's so good to see you all again. I can see you all here on the chat. Hi, Empire of the Light. Glad to see you back. Thank you. Suman is my husband. You guys may have met him in the last premiere if you caught that one. Hello, Dana. Hi, Elfern. Hello, Moon Queen. I love that name. Perfect. Let me just adjust this here. Okay. Hello, Katrina Butler. Woohoo! This is Phoebe. Hi, Phoebe. Good to see you. Perfect. So today I'm very excited about this. I've been talking about it, wanting to do it, and then I just realized, I'm just going to do it in my live. I'm just going to react to the show Stranger Things live for fun. And it'll give us kind of a fun conversation because not only is Stranger Things a esoteric conversation, there are so many countless other TV shows that are out there about this. So I wanted to get into that. So if you guys have questions about any others, maybe I've seen them, maybe I haven't. But just let me know. And thank you. I love the new room. Thank you so much. We moved. So this is my new live room. This is my new space. I already like it better. The internet is already better. For those of you know, if you know, you know. So this is already better. And so on that note, I'm going to start out just because some of the stuff that I want to get into is just more intense. Thank you, Elfern. But the message I really want to lead with, what I want to start out with is what is going on right now. Everyone that I'm talking to, all of my clients, I'm blown away by the energy that everyone is bringing. There's like a mass, they call it, this ascension cycle. And while I do think that is the misuse of the term ascension, I do feel an ascending motion to everyone's energy. Everyone's consciousness is raising, and it is raising quickly. And I see it as an unstoppable force. I see it as something that we are using to it comes to me as kundalini. It's spiritual energy. It's being quickened. I feel like it has something to do with changes in the sun. We're getting a lot of CMEs, corona mass ejections. I don't actually follow them myself, but my astrology teacher does. He actually tracks the solar flares and notice it does research on how it affects people, either emotionally or just how it's kind of affecting the world. How it's affecting the economy. There's lots of different research. So if you're into that, you can even download the corona mass ejection tracker and just see if because everyone's so sensitive right now, just see if it is affecting you. See if you are feeling that cosmic rays. See if it's radiation essentially, but I do feel like it's something beyond the sun too that is really a beautiful mass uplifting kind of clearing energy that is going on right now. And so I don't know if it is, in response to the past few years that now we're just kind of, we're bouncing back stronger. That could be it. I just can really feel we're getting spiritual help. So if you are interested in intuition development, now is the time. Not only do I feel like intuition is our right, I also I get the message that intuition is also our duty. Developing intuition is kind of our duty as spiritual beings. It is something that if our intuition, if our psychic energy is left sort of unchecked, then it's almost like it's just energy that's running rampant. And it's something that we all have. And I feel like developing it is really just focusing it. It's just making it yours. It's basically just taking it back rather than letting it kind of run around undisciplined or unchecked, which is what I see a lot of when I see something like schizophrenia, or when I see, certain things where people are kind of manifesting a lot of chaos around their life. Oftentimes, it's a really psychic person that is allowed their psychic energy to be undisciplined. So if you're feeling this fall energy coming in, and you're feeling kind of like I'm feeling, and you're feeling like hunkering down with learning something new, or kind of a new desire to develop, yeah, it is really strong right now. If you're kind of feeling that new desire to either learn a new modality, or take on kind of some new focus to using your energy and intuition development, or a spiritual practice that is yours, that is your own. So much of what I am all about, so much of what my sessions are, is about spiritual sovereignty. We have religion, which sort of gives us, it's kind of spoon fed, right? Where it sort of gives us the framework of who to believe in, where to direct our attention, where to put our spiritual energy, what to do, what are our spiritual practices. They're all given to us. We're told what to do. It is my opinion that souls are incarnating in droves now that don't necessarily need this to be spoon fed to them. It is the next step, I feel like, up to follow our own connection back to the roots, and create our own spirituality, almost like creating our own practices, and really tuning in to who we were, where we come from, how we got here, which all the way back to which planets we pinged off from, and got where we got here through. Um, and I feel like that is harder. I feel like it's easier to kind of sit, in a church or in an establishment, and be told what to do. And ultimately, at the root, it is all the same. So, I'm not bashing anything. And ultimately, you'll find, by creating your own connection, that it is really all the same. But there's something about taking your psychic energy back and focusing it where you want to focus it, rather than where we're told to focus it. I also feel like just it's a good practice in sovereignty in general. Spiritual sovereignty, it just leads the way for other acts of independence and sovereignty in our life. So that is why I think it is important. And if you are interested, I am going to start doing some beginners intuition Zoom classes. If you want to hop in this fall, email me if you're interested. I'm going to be putting it on my website. I also have an intermediate advanced class on Monday nights, every other Monday nights, that will be continuing. We'll be starting back up in September. So if you would like to jump into that, if you have some intuition already, that some experience already, you can jump into that as well. So that is kind of my intro message. But what I really wanted to get into today is my reaction to Stranger Things. Did you all see it? Did you all watch the show? I'm going to warn you, there probably will be spoiler conversations in here. So kind of spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, I'm not actually recommending it. I'm not endorsing it. This is just for those of you that have seen it and are like, oh my God, what is this? And I really just kind of, as someone who is really triggered by the show, as kind of an MK Ultra kid, I call it MK Ultra, but really MK Ultra was just a piece of the program that I was in. I don't actually know the name of the program I was in. I've heard it called Monarch. I've heard it called all kinds of things. But I love that, Dan, you canceled Netflix, been avoiding TV. I love that. That's great. I think that there are cycles and times for everything. But what is interesting, so I'll just give you a recap for those of you that haven't seen it. Stranger Things is about a little girl who escapes from an underground lab, who has telekinetic powers, and she is completely socially awkward, and all of these things that I actually kind of identified with. She doesn't feel like she fits in, I not that I identify with her telekinesis, because that wasn't necessarily my thing that I was focusing on in my program, though that was part of it. So I would just say they really blew that one out, of proportion. They really kind of made hers very strong, where she is throwing around cars and stuff. But it's set in the 80s. It's actually a really cool kind of show, but it is full of triggers. And so if you kind of suspect any of this stuff for yourself, I wouldn't watch it. Like I would probably avoid it. It's pretty triggering with the flashing lights that they're doing, because that was something that I remember, the flashing lights being a trigger, or it helped programming go deeper. So they would like flash lights at us, and it would almost give our conscious mind something to react to, and then things could kind of come in under it. And so the show uses so much of the flashing lights that I'm like, it actually was giving me these memories back. So it's not that I think this is on purpose. I'm also going to make this disclaimer. I think sometimes people make the mistake of feeling like, oh, everyone, this is showing us a lot of stuff. These guys must be in on it. And I can just say from experience that that is not necessarily true. It There are so many kind of forces at play when it comes to when artists start channeling. There are so many things that people will resonate with. Now, it could be that there is a connection in some capacity, right? I mean, these could be victims channeling their memories. That might even be more probable than everyone being in on it. I just want to, when I'm getting into this stuff, I don't want you to go the paranoid kind of route where you feel like everyone is in on it and they're showing us this stuff. Because while that may be true, on some level, I also know for a fact from personal experience back when I used to do film acting in my 20s, that people are channeling, these screenwriters are channeling. And, kind of once you get into that space and you start channeling up there, it's really like whatever is up there that resonates with you is what is going to come out on the page. And it's not necessarily that it has anything to do with you personally as, any sort of perpetrator or being in on it. Now, at higher levels of these, say like Lionsgate and these big corporations, once you get up to the top of these big kind of movie corporations, that's when things are a little different. That's when you can kind of see where there are, these people have themes of shows that they buy or shows that they don't buy, that they censor. So that's more accurate than, the Duffer Brothers are in on this, because I really don't see that at all. But they are very interesting, and they did tap into some interesting stuff, and it very, very accurately for a large part. Not all of it. I'll get into that, but that is an interesting thing. So the indie era, highly triggering, but very interesting, right? It was very triggering. There was a lot of stuff to trigger, and I will get into that. Did you watch Archive 81? And Moon Queen also liked it, and I did not. I have not seen Archive 81. So tell me what you thought about that one. I will probably watch it if you guys are mentioning it, just out of curiosity. I am a Gemini, so that just giving you guys a little background on me and my connection to this. Again, if you don't know my story, I, as a kid, would spend summers in New Mexico. I grew up in North Texas, and I had family members that worked in the Los Alamos National Laboratory, postmaster for Los Alamos, and we would summer up there. We would vacation up there every summer. We would and then drive from Los Alamos to a place called Chama, New Mexico, which is really close to the Dulce base. And I have memories in both. We would actually, one of my biggest, weirdest memories actually has to do with pulling up to a mine. And I think I've told you guys this before, but pulling up to a mine in the middle of basically Dulce. And it's completely, there's like danger, do not enter, signs, falling rock signs. And we end up, the next thing I remember is we kind of all come to and we're driving in the car. So there's a lot of missing time at this entrance. And so there's lots of missing time in this area. And then I didn't really have any other memories until I got older. And these pictures just started hitting me. And I just started putting together, the pieces of what I was remembering. And then it started getting validated I was going to all these different people and all these different psychics and healers, and they were all saying the same thing. And it was really, it healed my soul. I was like, okay, I am not crazy, because that's what I was thinking. But if you do kind of suspect that you have any of that, I don't really recommend Stranger Things, just because, one, there is a lot of fear and doom programming in it. There's just, there's a lot of fear, and a lot of, really, especially the last season, the third season, is just nasty. Like, there's just drawn out fear scenes. The show Fringe, if any of you have seen Fringe, that they did the same thing, where they're showing these really esoteric, true kind of CIA projects. It's just out there, but they start every episode with some kind of disaster, some kind of, violent scene, or some kind of disaster. And there's a lot of that too in Stranger Things, where it kind of like lowers your frequency before you see, whatever CIA thing that they're showing you. And I think that might be on purpose. There might be something to that. And so that's just it. These aren't necessarily uplifting shows. They don't really uplift your, your energy. They are very entertaining, and they're showing things that are true and very triggering. And I think that is on purpose. I think one of the biggest purposes for that, for allowing the show to get on the air and for Netflix buying it, is because, when people like me start coming up with these memories and start coming up with these stories, and hopefully more people will start sharing them, then people can just delegitimize it by being like, you just saw Stranger Things. You've just been watching too much TV. So making it more mainstream like this does have a discrediting sort of effect. And that is what I don't love about it. That is one thing. And so I'm noting that is, I feel like that's kind of its purpose. I think some of these darker agendas feel like if they're putting this stuff out there, then they're getting our permission because they told us the truth, and we're just accepting it and going along with it. It's kind of the lies they tell themselves in their head. So, whatever, that's noted. I'm not afraid of it, and I'm not letting it kind of bring me down, because it's really, for me, all in the spirit of curiosity. And really, for this, it was entertainment. But there was so much truth to this that they were showing, I felt like addressing it. So first of all, I'm going to start with the things that were true. And one of the things that was true, actually, was the interdimensional chimera monsters. The whole, especially in the first two seasons, they have that flower man and those demi-dogs, like these monster dogs that are kind of mixes of different things, which was interesting because they kind of showed a human plant mix, which that is absolutely going on. That is something that I remember seeing. And it wasn't because the kids in the program were in the same room with this stuff, but you get psychic kids that are doing astral travel and astral work in these and underground bases, and then they expect us not to be able to see what's in the other rooms. That's hubris. First mistake right there. So they did have, from what I remember, there were chimeras. There were two different types of animals, lots of two different types of animals, like a pig iguana, and all different weird, like they were mixing the species and even the kingdoms, really, and trying to kind of just create this, I don't know what they were I don't know what they were doing, but they had a lot of them, and they were blurring the lines. I feel like with human DNA, it felt like the beginning of cloning experiments. There was just I just remember a room where the wall was lined with cages, and the really big cages were at the bottom. And then they got smaller as they went up. And in my memory, everything was black, everything was dark, almost like the lights were out. But I also feel like that is probably the energy overlay that I was seeing. So that's the thing. Weaponizing abilities is a thing. The weird relationship with the father. With father, I think she called him daddy. That was also true. There is a strange kind of Stockholm syndrome that went on in those programs, as well as those programs. Basically, it's kind of CIA recruiting there. And now some of the things that weren't um, accurate were that the monsters were too strong. The dark stuff is not that strong when it comes to these lower astral beings. They are not as strong as they show in that show. And so what was interesting, yeah, Papa, yeah, that's the super Stockholm syndrome, and that was very accurate actually to my experience in there. And so that was something that struck me personally about the show, because everyone's like, what is wrong with you? But that was really real. They definitely made everything feel okay and very normalized. But they make the evil thing so strong, especially in season 3, that is not how it is. When it comes to dark forces versus light forces, the dark forces are inherently weak. They're inherently parasitic. They can't do anything unless they've kind of attached to someone, attached to a biological being, attached to a light being, and use that psychic energy. So all of this is just tale as old as time. We have to get the darker energy has to get psychic energy to use in order to do anything. And so it's kind of the permission that we give. And sometimes, they take without permission, but let's see, definitely they are not that strong. In season 3, they did show something that was very interesting, which was basically like the creation of the Greys. They actually had a Grey kind of being as the bad guy, which I found very interesting, because the way that they showed his story was that it was almost kind of the way that I see how the Greys came to be what they are. So he was a person, and then he devolved. He got pushed into the lower astral by this, psychic child, and he got kind of just taken over by his own issues, his own stuff, and really kind of devolved and turned into a Grey trapped in the lower astral, and would kind of push through this interdimensional. So this dimensional portal was opened in the underground base, which is what they're doing. It's kind of what CERN is about. And it kind of just let through these, beings, and really on purpose. But he kind of got out of control, and they made the story really interesting. But I did find that was a fascinating kind of tell about the Greys. I'm like, oh, there's actually a Grey as the bad guy in this one. So it had my interest, even though it was nasty to watch. It wasn't fun. But that was something very interesting. Now, living well for less. Hi, why do you believe Stranger Things takes place in Indiana as well as so many supernatural shows? That is a good question. I don't really know about Indiana. I've heard so many things. I've heard people insist that Stranger Things was about Oak Ridge in Tennessee. It's like the same thing is happening in all of these underground bases, that I don't think it really matters. It's kind of the same in every state. Indiana is kind of one of those Midwestern states that it isn't really known for anything. So it's kind of like it gets away with being like this supernatural catch-all, because it's lots of cornfields, lots of open space. That's my best guess. on that one. It could be it's not necessarily that I see anything as supernatural and if I'm looking at more of a supernatural state, would see more of Kentucky, like South Kentucky or West Virginia. So not necessarily Indiana any more than any other states. So hi, Jay Bantad. Hi, Olivia. What is your advice on how to consciously watch these types of shows? That's a good question. I feel like consciously consuming any sort of entertainment is really important. It is what we're being called to do more and more now, especially music. That has really been coming up for me. Watching what music you're listening to and really paying attention. Do you resonate with the lyrics? How do you feel with the sound? Is it healing? Like, are you actually feeling better? Is it uplifting or is it kind of jarring? So for so long, I felt like this rock music was uplifting and energizing, and really, it was actually kind of burning me out a little and making more like static around me than anything. And it was kind of making me, lifting my energy and being more like masculine, but not in like a not in like a balanced way. And so when it comes to consciously watching shows, what I do personally is I stay very conscious. I don't like I pay attention. I catch things. Often I pause. I pause the show and I'm like, do you see what they just did there? To kind of interrupt the flow, and so it doesn't just kind of get accepted by the subconscious. Accept. You can pause the show and I'm like, whoa, look at that. I'm pointing things out as a form of unacceptance, if that makes sense. If I can see like, okay, I see what they just did there, or look at all that flashing, then it's like it can't really just slide things by you and get away with, it it's not it's not like I think really anything is super nefarious, as much as I really do think that understanding why you are watching what you're watching or consuming whatever media that you are consuming. Notice what kind of music you need at what time, because of what emotional state you're in. Notice on your Netflix queue. Yeah, it is an active conscious pattern interrupt. Yeah, and that's kind of what it is. I'm like, nope, I'm not letting myself stay in like a static alpha theta open kind of brainwave. I'm like I'm pulling out of it, pulling back into my beta conscious kind of waves to kind of take a break and just notice it. When it comes to mind control, it's just awareness. You can't really have any sort of mind control if you have mindfulness, if you meditate. And so I do like a mindful watching practice. Sometimes I didn't do this with Stranger Things, but with the OA, I took notes because I'm like, okay, I want to see everything that they're downloading, just to, I would pause it and take notes because there was so much layered. That the OA to me feels like a remote viewed sort of show. It's a show that I think they sat down, and maybe just like the two of them, and they sort of remote so it psychically kind of channeled this. And I don't know if they used psilocybin or something to do it, but there is a remote viewing aspect to it that is kind of like a higher sort of channeling. Went into that screenwriting of the show, the OA. So if you guys haven't seen that one on Netflix, I would actually recommend that one more than Stranger Things, even though there can be some triggering things in the OA also, um, for me too. But I feel like that. Hi, Melody9. Netflix put out a documentary about Woodstock 99. It spoke to me. It validated why I had such deep depression in my early 20s. Yeah. So that's interesting. I haven't seen that, but that's the takeaway for these, how to consciously watch these shows is to understand, is to see it as validation and know that these things are coming up because they're rising to the surface of consciousness of humanity, and it is now available for people to start channeling and putting it into the mainstream because it's rising up, and being put out there. So I feel like, That is something good to know. And hi, original angel. I love the OA. Yes, and your username. It triggered so many memories for me and helped me awaken to new levels. It validated and gave me hope. Yeah, yeah, and her Britt Roland's other writing, absolutely, especially I think she does one on, like, this cult or, like, with this guru or something, which was really interesting, where I totally felt like she was remote viewing, all of these shows, kind of showing a deeper, almost different perspective to and a more spiritual perspective to things that, are not necessarily in mainstream conversation. Yeah, sound of my voice. That was just an interesting, kind of mind-bending sort of show. So this was this topic of conversation, talking about Stranger Things, was what I talked on my Instagram. I don't know if you all are on Instagram, but I put out a poll. Should I respond to Stranger Things? Should I talk about the OA? And really, resoundingly, everyone wanted to talk about Stranger Things. So it's kind of what I focused on. But the OA was really more uplifting to me energetically. Although it is, these are entertainment, and ultimately, what um only 2 seasons for the OA, but ultimately, I tend to kind of go in TV watching in spurts, like, sometimes I kind of need the grounding to kind of just simplify my life, and I need to kind of just relax. I use it as a relaxing, and something that I do is I pay attention to what shows I'm gravitating to on my Netflix. I often tend to pick shows that reflect past lives that I've had, like, um, connections to certain places. Like, I'll watch a lot of, like, Irish shows for a while, and or alien shows will kind of come up when I was going through, like, a really strong alien phase. And so just kind of notice, be conscious of your entertainment, and see kind of why you're drawn. If you're drawn to a lot of fantasy, that's a lot of kind of creative energy. And oftentimes, a lot of these fantasy shows are past life Atlantean memories, is how I see it. And so, especially like these dragon, shows. So that is something to keep in mind, that the shows that you're watching could be some form of, either, if it's not emotional therapy, it is some form of kind of past life therapy or past life connection that you have with the subject matter. If you're really drawn to Stranger Things, if it has, like, a weird effect on you, if you feel kind of weird after it, it could be, that some of this material is triggering you for a reason. And a lot of this stuff happened also astrally. So it is kind of like an astral thing as well. And so I know, and it's all about the upside down, which is the lower astral. So it is sort of like a show depicting the lower astral. Um, So yeah, that is how I would explain that. And I also liked I Origins. That was talking about a past life. I don't think I saw Another Earth, but I Origins is about past lives. So, are there any other questions about this that you guys have, or comments that you? Hello, Blue Alchemist. Perfect name. Speaking of alchemy, that is something that I kind of wanted to share. That's funny. Reaction videos by a psychic sounds like a successful business model to me. That's funny. Thank you for your business support. So yeah, that's definitely my reaction to Stranger Things, where I'm like, or any show that I watch, I'm like, the demons are way too strong. That is not accurate. The only thing that they can really do is get you in your self-worth or your issues that you already have. When it comes to these lower astral entities, doing your own work, kind of cleaning your own house is really, mentally and emotionally, is really the way to keep clear with that, as well as align yourself with traditions and beings that you align with organically, and that can also provide, your source of faith provides your protection as well. So all of that to say, let's see if there's any, I'm just checking my notes and seeing if there's anything else that I wanted to mention about this. Yeah, do you feel like these programs are hitting a dead end? I feel it's strange that Stranger Things would be so popular otherwise, but maybe there are things I totally don't understand either. Yeah, actually, absolutely hitting a dead end. I don't think that, so for example, the way that they used water for L was not something that I experienced, but it was something that I think that they did in earlier programs. So they get more and more refined. And you know why I think that these programs are hitting a dead end is because now it has gone live. I feel like now they're doing it on a wider scale. They no longer have to experiment. It's kind of like they got their information. They know how people's minds work. They know how psychics work. They know how to try to kind of tamp down this psychic energy. They know how to try to control it and use people's attention, and use their energy for, maybe not the greater good. And so that is why I feel like they're hitting a dead end. I don't really see, I'm not connected to this world anymore because I've totally like pulled out of kind of mainstream institutional schooling and all of that, but I don't really see them dovetailing with schools as much as they did in the 90s, for example. In the 90s, it's like they could get away with things that they can't anymore. In the 90s, they were even still sending home, like, can we spank your child sheets? So it's like, it was just kind of a different era. And now people are paying attention too much now. We're too aware kind of therapeutic things that they can't get away with it. Yeah, technologically, these programs have gone live. It's like I see MK Ultra as kind of like a live program now that is societal wide. No one needs to be abducted. It's just kind of out there. But that is just the way I see it. That's the way that it has. So now, when I see things or hear things, I don't watch the news, and I don't recommend that at all. When I hear, current events, I see things through this lens. I see things through the lens of mind control. How are they wanting us to feel? How are they wanting us to think? And I stay really conscious with it. I question it. I'm like, okay, that's going to put everyone into a state of fear, and who's benefiting? And I try to look into like who's benefiting. It's going to be benefiting someone either financially or energetically, because the way that just because of the energy dynamics of that. But yeah, I had dreams before about really big swimming pools, but it would be me and other people in the pools, not in the same way. Yeah, it could be that I have weird things with water and pools too, but I don't have any memories of it. And so it could be that that was still used, but that is not what I remember. I remember things being more drugs, and contraptions like around the head, and kind of more like it really wasn't water. I feel like if they did put us into salt water like they did her, I feel like it would have a cleansing effect, actually. I feel like it wouldn't necessarily push us into the lower astral. I feel like I feel like it would kind of help us reach kind of higher, it would be more of a cleansing in a higher state. So that's just my opinion on that. If you've ever done like a float tank, that, or used one of these like mindfold masks to really like block out all the light, and done any work, psychic kind of work or meditation with that, it really can connect you to higher states. If that is a state you're holding, right? Kind of if that's a frequency that you're at. You mix it with other things like beautiful music, and that can really be a beautiful meditation, a really beautiful practice. If you're outside, connecting to the earth or to a tree, um, these these um, these things can really uplift you, and kind of send you into kind of the interdimensional spaces that are not the lower astral, that are actually the higher interdimensional spaces, which is where intuition should come from. It's not where all intuition comes from. And that's why I speak out about these things. This is my intention. Um yeah, typically dreams with water represent the flooding of emotions. That can be true. I mean, sometimes the dreams can be literal, like if you do have, memories coming forward, water is also memory, but it can be emotions is what Carl Jung says that water represents. So, yeah, thank you for that one. Definitely emotional work is what naturally comes up with meditation and with spiritual work and with intuition development. It triggers some sort of emotional reaction. Some people triggers intense excitement. Some people it's fear, like there's resistance to it, or some people realize, oh, I have intense self-worth issues. I'm afraid every time, I do this work. And that's a beautiful sort of awareness that you can use as to what your emotional blocks could be, as to where to take your healing to the next level. Like that would be something that I would take into my therapist. It's almost like I would do this emotional development, and then or I would intuition development, and then I would take my emotional kind of triggers to my therapist. So I wasn't necessarily talking about super woo woo stuff with my therapist. I was talking about emotions and real, my life, not real life, but like my kind of daily life and daily emotional stuff without and I would get help with that from from good therapists, and that really kind of took me to the next level, because for me it was a lot of just stuff with family and all of that, which kind of most of us have. And so working through that, we're really only as good as our biases when it comes to intuition. So really clearing out your biases is what is going to give you a clearer channel when it comes to receiving. So if you really want to kind of take your intuition to the next level and really sort of focus and discipline on it, one, it's practice, it's focus, it's coming back to it and using it, and two, it is maintaining a relaxed state. So whatever you are stressed out about, whatever is your cause of stress in your life that makes you tense or contracted, addressing those things is a big part of intuition development. You have to be in a relaxed state, and you have to be able to hold a sustained relaxed state in order to have the intuitive flow. And so that's often a practice. So, and then also just coming up with your the way that you practice and can make it a regular routine, like coming up with your routines and the way that you like to either, is it sitting down and meditating? Is it walking in nature? Is it sitting by a tree? Like these things will help whatever self-observation that you're doing. Self-observation is really kind of the key to all of this. It's what lets you know your purpose. It's what opens up this dialogue with your spirit. So that is what is really ramping up right now. Everyone is kind of like, okay, what next? We just survived something big. What's next? I feel like everyone is also even waiting kind of for the next shoe to drop, which I find it's an interesting thing to feel. Yeah, Elfern, emotional development goes hand in hand with intuition development for sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's a big one, because that's a big one. If any of you guys have ever met like a brand new intuitive, or someone who's like, I am an intuitive, you can kind of feel that it's almost like emotional, it's like an intuitive immaturity or like emotional immaturity, that you have to have the emotional maturity. I just posted a blog post about this. I sent it out in my newsletter. If you guys saw that. So it's about when you're on the intuitive path, there are a lot of maturity lessons that are part of it. A lot of intuition is not saying everything you get. Just because you get it, I hear this all the time. Well, they just can't handle the truth. I say the truth and they can't handle it. And I'm like, well, first of all, do you like hearing harsh criticisms? No one really does. And so I hear a lot of kind of new intuitives, they get these, downloads, and they're pretty critical, and they deliver it, like as if I'm an intuitive and I need to deliver this criticism. And when it's not met with, you know, understanding, they're like, oh, well, they can't handle my truth. They can't handle my intuition. And I feel like that's a phase. It's a phase. And hopefully if that person continues the growth, they grow out of it. So that is something that you do kind of have to watch out for on this path, because when intuitives are kind of in their ego, that is more of what they're doing. And honestly, that is usually, yes, the wording of a reading is an art form. It really, truly is. And getting it right is hard. It's practice. There's really only one way to learn, right, Dana? Like, you just have to kind of keep doing it so that you learn how to say what you need to say, because everything needs to be, if it's true intuition, it's from love. Everything else is ego and projection. I've had someone come up to me like, I can feel your anger coming just off of your hips. And I'm like, okay, like, I had kind of a weird childhood. I can see how you would say that, and so I'm like, do you want me to get into it? I can tell you about it. I can tell you about, all the MK Ultra experiments if you'd like, and so I'm like, I think it's kind of funny when people are, try to tell me how I feel, or try to, they give readings by trying to point out this. And it's always an energy, right? If it's not from love, it's projection, right? It's their stuff. So often intuitives, especially when they first start out, when they're in training, there's a grace period. I kind of call it like intuitive beginner's luck. There's a grace period where you have your teacher holding space for you when you're practicing, and you're kind of in this cultivated circle that is a cultivated space of love. And then sometimes, if people are going out by themselves, they have to understand that sometimes what they're reading for other people is their own stuff projected, if they haven't dealt with it. And by dealing with it, I mean sitting with it and feeling it. It's not comfortable. But until we do that, we tend to see it on other people, and give readings to only the other people. We only feel chemistry with people that have the same kind of trauma that we are projecting. And that is another thing too with readings is, the stuff that we are projecting, there is some kind of resonance, in the field. And so we have to really stay clear and unbiased, and also don't put up with, unethical psychics with unethical intuitives. That's just unethical. When an intuitive is being like, you feel sad, why do you feel sad? It's kind of prying. It's kind of rude. I don't think it's ethical. So yes, the wording of reading of a reading is an art form. Exactly. So totally. You can't decide to go on a hike and climb a mountain, then climb down and yell at the town for not understanding the beauty you saw at the peak. That's really good, Moon Queen. Yeah, it's kind of like being a Lamborghini when, you still have to drive on the same road as everyone else. Even though you can go faster, you still have to kind of go on the same road. And the grace that comes with that is part of the maturity path of the intuitive. And it's so important. So as, we're growing into it intuitively, you also have to do your emotional work. And a lot of that is kind of keeping your mouth shut sometimes. Okay, living well for less. I keep reading it as living for wellness. Beautiful. As someone in MK Ultra, did you ever awaken with unexplained bruises? Yes, all the time. Or have any weird bird experiences? Yes, and yes. So I don't think that the unexplained bruises, you don't necessarily have to be part of the, whole MK Ultra thing in order to have that. And that is a really common thing with the abduction phenomenon. And the weird bird experiences are often an abduction thing. MK Ultra is connected to abductions. It's connected to the grays. And so there is a connection for both. You will find both people having these experiences. When it comes to unexplained bruises, there's all kinds of things for that. Unexplained people, I have seen in my work that people will spend a lot of time on the astral, and if they're kind of dipping into the lower astral at night, like in dream time, entities can take swings at people, and it will show up as bruises on the body. So that's one explanation. That is one thing. Even kind of just touching that, it'll show up as bruises. So it could be a lower astral thing. Unexplained bruises. Of course, MK Ultra is lower astral stuff. It's basically um, they're basically trying to see if I could simmer down the definition of MK Ultra. It is a experiment to see if they could lower people into the lower astral, if they could kind of take the psychic ability and lower it down into this lower place. They're trying to direct where we would go with our psychic energy. So really taking that back is what I'm here to tell you. Yeah, and then bird experiences. I don't know. It's interesting about that. I remember as a kid, one time we woke up and my parents were so confused. There were 20 dead birds in our yard. Must have been 20. Like they seemed to be like 200. They were everywhere, but it was like 20 dead birds, and it was really just in our yard. So it was almost like something came down from above. I don't know. That was just the best kind of the best explanation that we had. Of course, they called someone. I think they called animal control, or they called someone, and they came out and were like, "Oh, someone must be around here with a BB gun." We would have heard shooting, like we would have heard all of that going on. We'd been home that night, so it wasn't a BB gun. These birds weren't really. It wasn't BB gun things, but it's interesting bird experiences. One time, actually, I used to live next to these really psychic twins, these really psychic children. Gosh, I think when I moved in, they were two, and by the time they moved, they were six. So it was in that age range. They had constantly birds hitting their windows. They had bats hitting their windows. And the parents, of course, didn't know they were psychic. One time, the little boy left a note in my mailbox, and it was all these shapes and pictures, and it said a message from the animals. Like he just like left it in my mailbox, and I was like, boy after my own heart. This is totally something I would have done as a child. Of course, that wasn't fostered, in the home, and now they're kind of in regular schooling, so all of that stuff is now he's more they're more mainstream. But when they were really young and they couldn't turn that off, they had lots of psychic energy. He would talk about seeing ghosts and people walking around in the backyard, which I saw too. So I'm like, yeah, this is these kids are mediums. And so birds are really sensitive to that energy. It could be that and bats are really sensitive to electromagnetic frequency. Bats are actually a good sign. If you're outside and you see bats around, it kind of means that the space is clear. It means that there's not any, weird static or just weirdness around. So, and birds and bats are drawn to kind of, it's like ley line energy. It's electromagnetic frequencies. And so that could be something for that. It sounds like you had a weird bird experience. I would love to hear if you feel like sharing. Affiliate power source. In the 90s, I achieved a great level of inner peace, but my karmic debt and bad choices caught up to me. That's funny. Learning to forgive is the best way to let go of negativity. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes, that can happen when we do have to, karma is a thing. And, we do have to reconcile, even though forgiveness is ultimate reconciliation. We do have to understand that, excuse me, we do have to sometimes reconcile with our past, with our own decisions. So that is a thing. Yeah, forgiving and letting go of negativity. Excuse me. Forgiving is a good way of letting go of negativity and ultimately forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself. You know, when it comes to karmic debt and bad choices, self forgiveness is often the hardest. It is often the worst part. And so, really releasing negativity for me was self forgiveness. So, and we do go through, as an initiation point, you know, in spiritual growth, we do go through a period where we spend a lot of time almost like, it's almost like a life review where kind of all of the stuff that we feel bad about or all the stuff that we've done in our past kind of comes up, you know, and the guilt is just kind of felt, and we kind of have to just feel that and kind of go through it. And I just see it as a life review that has come early. And I would rather do this work while I'm alive than wait until I crossed over, or wait until I died and then do it then, which is kind of a more mainstream model of doing it. So just know that on the spiritual path, you're speeding up and doing things in life that most people wouldn't do until, you know, they were on the astral, and it's easier to do it here. I don't necessarily think, I don't know that it feels any different. I kind of feel like it feels a little bit more difficult here, you know, like the guilt hurts a little bit more here than it would if we waited until we died to do that work. But I feel like we make more progress if we do. Okay. So while things are denser, we actually move further with that. So that's my read on that based on what crossed over people tell me, actually. Um, okay, now I am catching up. Yeah, so Elfern, once an intuitive clears or matures emotionally, their client base is more likely to open up and include more varied people with different concerns. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. You know, really, you kind of resonate with your clients. And sometimes, I mean, sometimes, you know, you get more like the more growth and healing you do, the more challenging clients you get because you're able to, you know, they can feel the medicine as resonance. It's also interesting to note that the astrology of your chart, when you really resonate with a client, there's some sort of correlation between your charts. So, you know, if you've ever had that experience where you're like, we just did not connect at all, then there was probably not a correlation in your chart. There probably was not like an easy, you know, connection in the chart. And that happens. It doesn't have to be so, you know, personal or that you messed up or did anything wrong. Sometimes it's just about resonance. Yeah. Moon Queen, how do you best maintain being clear and grounded? It's a good question. I get frustrated because I don't expect anyone to understand. I just hate how I can come off as weird and can't give people a reason to why I'm mad or sad. Yeah, I definitely have been there. I totally get it. Maintain being clear and grounded. I mean, what I personally, I really like Vipassana meditation retreats. I really like Vipassana meditation because that really makes you clear and grounded by kind of sitting in it. It uses mindfulness to for clarity, you know, and you're like you can you give people, you can't give a people a reason as to why you're mad or sad. With Vipassana meditation, you're kind of sitting in the madness or sitting in the sadness and allowing it to you're feeling it in your body, allowing it to be there until it moves or changes. So that, and you might not have a reason as to why then either, but it helps you hold more stable emotions. It helped me I was able to hold more stability after I did that because it was the process of clearing. And it's really the discomfort of holding these emotional, you know, states, or feeling what is in the body and the emotions, The discomfort to that is actually what I found, what was clearing me. So once I started seeing the discomfort as clearing, I was more okay with it. I was able to be like, okay, I was less avoidant. I was less averse to it. So if you kind of maybe reframe the discomfort that way, you can understand, okay, I'm clearing it. However, the flip side of that is, I also went through periods where I was really kind of depressed and emotionally kind of like all over the place. And that wasn't a clearing. That was kind of just me being more like bleh. And what I did was the things that, just to tell you what I did, is I moved, I changed environments, I changed houses. I started doing a daily cleansing practice. So either sage, sustainably sourced. I like from native sources, or Palo Santo, copal resin. I love copal incense sticks. I get it sourced from native sources on, I think, on Etsy. But the kind of whatever, I also really like dragon's blood incense. So I did a cleansing, a daily. I had to do it every day, and so it feels a little overwhelming for me at first when I was kind of in that state, because a lot of effort was actually kind of too much. But that helped me clear more than anything. Another grounding, I mean, if you can find a sweat lodge, if you can find, a native led sweat lodge, that is one of the, I think, most powerful things that I have done for clearing and grounding, because it's such a grounding thing. It's a womb, basically. And clearing and grounding also comes with balancing the energies, the masculine and the feminine. So sometimes we're really volatile because we're imbalanced. The masculine, is taking over, or the feminine is taking over. We're not acting, in the world, or the masculine is too, we're striving and pushing too much. And those kind of have to take a balance. If those are imbalanced, I tend to get really overwhelmed. Salt baths are another thing I love. Not only Epsom salts, which is magnesium, but also pink Himalayan sea salt that I get in a batch, and I just fill the tub up or go to a float. Um, yeah, and the idea coming off is weird. It's interesting that you say that, because I have, when I am in kind of an ungrounded place, I do get socially anxious. My social anxiety is kind of the first thing to show itself. So I always know my social anxiety for me is a state of ungroundedness. The more grounded I am, the more, how should I put this? Kind of the more grounded I am, the less anxiety is in my body, and kind of like the less energy is in my body. I also had to give up coffee. Coffee really ungrounded me. Even though coffee is supposed to be such a grounding thing, it was not for me. It ran out my adrenal glands too much. And so, really healing the nervous system is also a cleansing and grounding practice. So, I also, another thing I like to do is I like to keep pictures of beautiful, like I have Durga everywhere, but just whatever scene that you like. It could be a deity, your source of faith, or even just a beautiful scene, something that brings beauty into your surroundings is also very cleansing and grounding. And that is something that I really, really believe in, because I have seen it work. As well as music, filling the house with beautiful music really can work. I play the harp. I'm really into harp music. I feel like the harp could heal the world. So that is my opinion, and I am sticking to it. So I really feel like some of these beautiful instruments can really do a lot more than we give them credit for when it comes to clearing and grounding spaces, as well as creativity. When I'm talking about balancing masculine and feminine, some more on the feminine side is creativity. Are you nourishing your creativity? Would be a question I ask myself all the time. I'm like, what art classes, can I take? Like my thing right now in my head is like, okay, I need to sign up for drawing. I've taken watercolor classes, I take harp lessons. So it's all, what creative outlet are you drawn to? Because that will clear and ground that kind of psychic function and give it like a focus, but also expand it, which is clearing and grounding. Because really, when I'm ungrounded, I kind of see it as is excess psychic energy, or it can just be undisciplined kind of energy. And so disciplining the energy, it gives it an outlet, right? And so for my masculine side, if I'm like in here doing sessions all day and meditating, a lot, and I'm reading a lot, it's all very yin and mental, like it's like mental and yin. It's also very ungrounding. I have to get out. I have to go do a workout. I have to go for a hard walk, or I have to do something more to kind of kick my masculine energy into gear to kind of keep that balance. So, long answer to that one. Oh, yes. Yes. Someone, Jojo Bean. Hi. I bruise so easily. I brush against something and I'll get a bruise. That can also be a deficiency. Um, I iron, there's different things that could be, or zinc. Definitely look into taking, for all of you, really, especially in the winter, for immunity and for, I think, even for iron, and take liver pills. So I can't eat liver, but I really believe in its healing and rebuilding kind of power, especially if I'm bruising easily. So I would look into that for that. The metaverse is the lower astral materialized. Elfern, that is a good way of putting that. Yes, I agree. The indie era. Hello. Do you have any advice for taking control in the dream space? Gosh, that is a good question. I used to do this. I used to really be into this. And I have gotten away, like life kind of got away from me. When it comes to taking control in the dream space, I used to actually practice dreaming. I would practice astral travel. And so so it would be naps. It would be like I would take naps at like 3 p.m., with the intention of, okay, I'm going to astrally, project. And I would wake up in the room, but the walls were sparkly. Kind of, I just knew I wasn't quite, and then I would become aware. But that is more of astral practice. And you're talking about the dream space. What I would do is I would keep a dream journal by your bed and make it a habit of every morning, first thing that you do when your eyes open, write down your dream, write down everything you can remember. It's kind of a practice in memory too. And so when it becomes a habit, I feel like when we kind of say, okay, this is a habit, I'm going to be doing this every morning, it's almost like the dreams kind of work with you. And I do sometimes feel like memory can be a muscle. And so using that dream journal as just a way, even if all you remember in the morning was, I think I was dreaming about a gray horse, write that down, and the next time you'll remember two things and it'll expand. So taking control in the dream space, look into astral projection practice too, because there's a lot of information about this. I have some books that I have not read on astral projection. Who is it? It's one of the classic guys. There's also a Robert Bruce wrote Astral Dynamics, which is a really good one on just the dynamics of astral travel. So that could also kind of give you control in that space. And if you're talking about taking control in the dream space, like astrally, as in, will I end up in the lower astral in the dream space, really taking mindfulness control in your waking life kind of sets the frequency and sets the tone of the dream space. So doing the work during the day, to really surround yourself with beauty, uplift yourself, doing emotional healing, all of those things raises the frequency. It's not an overnight fix, and it's not about perfection. It's not like, I will still sometimes have dreams that I'm like, oh, that was weird. Like that was kind of creepy, but less and less, as time goes on. But I don't judge myself for it. I go into that. Don't go into guilt or judgment, but just kind of notice and stay mindful with it, because you will find that as your frequency raises, the dream space takes on a safer environment. Yeah. So Original Angel said, but with my mom and I have this, but with butterflies, specifically yellow ones, and often around intense experiences or something intense in a positive way. Yeah, yellow butterflies is a thing that people will get often. It's kind of like cardinals and yellow butterflies and owls. And Alvern said, I think large owls are also associated with grays. I remember seeing a great big one in the middle of the road after a flash of light and missing time. Yeah, that is one of the classic, right, stories of abduction for sure. Yeah. So sometimes I have seen with people out grays turning into kind of owls, they can turn into deer too. But it's like they can look, often grays cloak themselves a lot, I have found. But sometimes they're real owls, because real owls are attracted to the shimmer of interdimensional activity. They kind of just see the shimmer and they're attracted to it, kind of like moths are to light. And so it could be real owls that are around because they saw the interdimensional, action going. And it could also be like a cloaking thing. Either way, it kind of just depends. I've seen both. If they're really big, that's usually cloaking, like really big. Hi. And Sarah, hi everyone. I think I know some of you from Twitter. Yeah, I am really not on Twitter. I think I have an account, but I really don't do much on Twitter. Are you all on Twitter? Do you guys like Twitter? Is it a better space than Facebook? Do tell. Bliss Lee, hello. What's the best advice for someone with a Pisces moon? Oh, bless you. Yes, Pisces moon. That's the psychic and the creative. Pisces is the creative. People with Pisces moons tend to be very psychic. Very psychic. It's like you have a very your feminine, for women especially. Our moon can be more of our sign, more accurate to ourselves than our sun, because it's like the moon is our feminine energy and the sun is our masculine energy. So you can kind of see them as equal. Your sun and moon sign is kind of equal energies to you. So your Pisces moon, get into your creativity. What I was just talking about, the creativity that nurtures feminine energy. So absolutely get into whatever creative thing that you that lights you up, blissly, that will kind of help move that energy. Sometimes Pisces moons can be overwhelmed. You can be easily overwhelmed. Same with Cancer moons, honestly. Um, Pisces and Cancer moons can both be very emotionally overwhelmed, and creativity will really help move that. But just know that you're very psychic. You have a good intuition, and developing that also will just move that Pisces moon. I always will recommend intuition development, blissly. So just look into it. And I have some groups coming up on Zoom if you would like to jump in. Just trust your gut. Pisces moons really need to trust their gut. You'll have gut, and you'll have those intuitions that just come. I feel like I need to do this, and act on it. Yeah. And affiliate power source. My last out of body experience freaked me out because I was stuck on the corner of my bedroom ceiling. How do I get over that to make it easier to try again? I have actually had that happen. One time I had a dream where I felt something cold against my face, and I realized that it was the ceiling of the downstairs below me. This happened when I was a kid. I like floated like down through my bed and then up into the ceiling and like landed up against the ceiling. So yeah, that's kind of a thing with astral travel. I think I don't know about I'm not really like a super I don't practice a lot of astral travel. I have a lot of astral and dream activity where I'm very busy and I'm doing different things, and I can remember kind of dreams behind the dreams, like the things that I'm doing behind my dreaming. So there are different layers even in dream time. But that just sounds like you have a natural astral traveling ability. And I would I would just if you're stuck on the corner, if you're feeling like that stuck feeling, then one of the things I would do is I would look into when that happened to me, I was feeling very stuck in my life. I was feeling almost like trapped, like I couldn't be my full self. I couldn't express myself. Expressing myself was painful. I had some painful things to express. So that would be something that I would look into to kind of um, lessen the chances of that happening in your astral space. So just see if that resonates. Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming is a great book on how to lucid dream. Yeah. Sophia Kane, hello. I'm 23 weeks pregnant. Congratulations. This pregnancy has been about self love. It was tough in the beginning. My inner child was crying out to me. Loving myself has helped me love my child and 4-year-old. Congrats. I am loving that. So I feel like this is beautiful. The inner child. Yeah. Let's see. When it comes to, especially when you have multiple kids, really loving yourself and loving that inner child part of yourself will really help. It'll help get you through, especially the difficult times of the pregnancy and of motherhood. So I'm really glad you followed that intuition about your inner child and loving yourself, because that is really the key to really any blocks, with our kids, or when there's difficulty just in general with motherhood. It's kind of, we have to get back to loving ourselves. It's really like no one, by that point when we're the mother, we're giving, we're giving, we're giving. So we also have to give to ourselves. Okay. Hi, Ian Cullen. Perfect. Original Angel. Olivia, my brother and I, my brother and grandmother and I have all seen a gray dressed as the Pope. Speaking of cloaking, very creepy. That is super creepy. I feel like I have also seen them dressed as a pope. The one that I saw was in a wheelchair, dressed as a pope, really skinny, dressed as a pope, holding a scepter and leading a parade down like a suburban street. They were on the sidewalk. So yeah, I think it just it kind of tells probably what's going on behind stuff with the Pope, and then also just when it comes, oftentimes the Greys try to masquerade as some sort of leader, and they think however they can dress for you to think of them as, give them your power and leader, and think of them as leadership. That's what they'll try to dress as. Moon Queen, why are owls associated with them? I never realized a dream I had was about a gray. It makes so much sense now. Yeah, owls and grays, I don't know. It has to do with their interdimensional capacity. Owls can see in the dark, and black eyes, often foreseeing in the dark. So it had black eyes watching me in a snowstorm, and something said, use your wisdom to fly out of the snow and confusion. Yeah. Very interesting. And Dana, you feel like your tweets are shadow banned. Okay. So maybe I don't need to get on Twitter. Okay. Interesting. Okay, Tyler James. Hello. Don't know a ton about astrology, but I always thought the ascendant sign represented the true self, but you're saying that's the moon sign. So the moon sign is the inner self, your inner world. So to me, that's the true self. The ascendant sign represents what you portray to the world. It represents what people see you as. So is that the true self? Not always. It can be, but it's what you project a lot. It is going to be the persona. And it's your true persona. But the moon sign is your inner activity, your inner world, your secret hopes and dreams kind of thing. So I hope that makes sense and describes the difference there between the two. So yeah, an original angel. Yep. That's exactly. Hello, Renelle BTV. Hey, everyone. I'm glad you're here. Good to see you. Perfect. And Jojo Bean, what do you think it means when we see color in the astral? Usually it's just black and white for me. But last week I saw a red/yellow planet. Can we travel through time in the astral plane? That's a really good question. I think yes. I absolutely think we can. So interesting that it's usually just black and white in the astral. I don't usually see black and white unless I will see things black and white in the lower astral. Like if I'm kind of, I'll actually have very distinct, I'll be getting in a creaky elevator and going down and get out, everything's black and white, or when I was a kid, I would have a recurring dream of sliding down into mud with alligators in it, so very like gross. And even those sometimes even had color, but I think it's interesting that the color got your attention and you saw this planet. And a red and yellow planet is Venus. Venus is actually red, orangey red and yellow. So it could be that. I mean, who knows? There are billions. So can we travel through time in the astral plane? Yes. So the astral is kind of beyond time. It's a different dimensional space that we get there, in our astral body. That is our interdimensional ability. Absolutely. And then seeing planets to me kind of denotes different astral spaces too. And so, if you say you are going to Venus, you're having these, astral Venus visitations in your dreams. Sometimes that can really happen with people to uplift them and help reconnect them to their guides, their guidance, their past lives, really, and then they bring that back when they wake up. So I've had some of the most blissful experiences that I can remember have been from visiting. What I see is as a Venus, but really it's like a high dimensional plane, but it's very Venusian. It is also what I see when I, have seen Venus. And so that I come back with like this really like breath of fresh air, beautiful feeling. And so I would notice kind of how you feel when you wake up from these different dreams. So lots of color in the astral is probably kind of different planes and probably higher, planes that are more and more giving you more than just black and white. And sometimes, the black and white could just be that it's a simple topic and they're wanting to give you like simple visuals. Yeah. Original Angel. Oh my gosh. Hearing that you guys have seen the same thing triggered my nervous system to start shaking from the validation. Yeah, that's something that's funny. When I first started kind of raising my vibration, doing this work, training in like regressions and doing this work, I would shake like a chihuahua because I was opening up energetic pathways. It felt like I was shaking like a chihuahua. And I thought I remember being like, am I a small animal now? Like I couldn't stop shaking, but I felt good. And it was because I was opening up energy channels in the body, which is a really good thing to help with all kinds of things to help clear and ground the energy. So really, really beautiful. So one of the things that I wanted to mention today was the astrology for kind of upcoming in September. Something that you guys should be aware of. And this is called mundane astrology. When people do astrology for world events, They call it mundane astrology, but Uranus is squaring Saturn, and it gets exact. It's with an orb now, but it's exact on September 30th. So in 1 month from today, essentially, um, it goes exact. I'm looking. It's within orb now, but when it gets exact, what Uranus is sudden electricity, sort of out of the blue activity, and Saturn is kind of concrete. It's structures, it's rules, it's slowing things down. So Uranus is quickening things up, and Saturn is slowing things down. So when these two are in a hard angle with each other, you can kind of see the energy of wanting to speed up and the energy of wanting to slowing down at odds with each other. So just know that what this would translate when I look up the US chart, it hits the US chart in the second house of money and the fifth house of creativity, children. And so to me, kind of what that, and also leadership. The fifth house is leadership, creativity, children. And so there is some sort of leadership capacity that is going to affect probably the finances. So it'll probably be some kind of economic upset, and it might be sudden. Whenever there's Uranus, it's sudden. It's outside, it's out of the blue. It's almost like we don't expect it. Although everyone is expecting this right now. Everyone is talking about recession and all of that, and we are in one. But be looking for, it's almost like a sudden change in financial freedom. If I look at Uranus as freedom, and Saturn is being kind of the financial side, being in the house of money, and kind of that responsibility. There's going to be like a change in responsibility. Finances could be slowing down. It could be, with with Saturn in Aquarius in the second house of the United States money, while the United States has their Pluto return, has Pluto hitting Pluto in the second house of money, we know there's going to be changes and slowing down with the finances. The finances are slowing down. The housing market is slowing down. All of these things are really going down, and both of them are retrograde. Uranus and Saturn are both retrograde, which is also interesting. So we're going back and picking up what we forgot, kind of what we left off with. We are getting back into that. So that is something to just, be aware of in October. I know that everyone is kind of bracing for this recession. So I think if you kind of are aware of it ahead of time, then there's no need to panic. And I always love the idea of being so kind of prepared that you don't need to go into fear when other people are being kind of hit out of nowhere. So that's just what I would expect and see there. And as I'm looking, okay, trying to catch up. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Renelle BTV. Hey, Olivia, I was wondering if you could share about what a Venus in Leo would represent. Yes. Okay. So Venus is your sense of ease, your sense of beauty. Venus brings it brings beauty, ease, and really gifts wherever in the chart. I would look on your chart and see what house Venus in Leo is, and that's kind of where your sense of beauty lies. That's where your gifts are. That's where you have luck and ease. That's where you shine. So Leo is the shining sign. It's the sign of the sun, right? It is leadership. So it's feminine. Venus and Leo to me is feminine leadership. It's female leader. So if you have Venus in Leo, you really, people really see you as a leader, and they see that feminine quality in you, in your leadership. And also, create Leo is creative. It's almost childlike, or good with children, or good with that creative young sort of energy that you just bring. So Venus in Leo is a very, very important, beautiful position. And just look in what house, you can Google, okay, like if you find it's like in the third house, Google third house and see where this leadership and luck and beauty is for you. Because people, it's like wherever it is, people are going to look up to you as a leader in that position, in that. So if it's in the third house of communication, you're going to be asked to communicate what you see, or communicate how you feel. If it's in the seventh house of love and relationships, it's going to be your kind of like your luck in relationships. Almost like an ease actually in finding your match. And it's going to be important to you, but it's going to be a really beautiful part of your life. So those are just some examples of, what that could mean depending on where it is. Hi, Dana. I'm struggling to relax. I have the deep-seated fear that my bliss will be broken. It's really been a battle. I actually have also come across this feeling. It was yesterday that I realized, yeah, it was just yesterday that I realized that I felt that way. So one, it's kind of beautiful that you feel bliss to break, right? So that's a good thing. It's good to know that you have that bliss in the first place. But when it comes to relaxing into that bliss, it's really, I think, it's telling me that you're working up into holding these states of bliss, and it's not really an overnight thing. So struggling to relax can kind of say, it kind of tells me that something, almost like either the cortisol in the body or something, like the sympathetic nervous system is still firing when it doesn't need to. You're still a little bit in mental fight or flight. What I would do when I am trying to relax and I can't, I have to get out of my head. I have to stop reading, studying, all the stuff I love, really. I have to kind of get out of the mental body and back into the physical body in order for my body to relax, that get into those relaxed, places, and really feel like I can hold states, because the ability to hold a state of bliss is actually kind of a slow, grounded, sort of state. So just getting into things that relax you is also, I know you're saying you're struggling to relax. It's kind of lessening the screen time and the mental time, even the reading, and more of the doing. It could be exercise, movement, kind of getting those energy channels kind of moving, getting that heart pumping out the old, right? And so, yeah, the bliss will be broken is it's like an old past life trauma that is no longer. So past life work might also be, in the cards for you, if you're feeling that. So definitely. Do you undertake any remote viewing practices? If so, which method do you use? Ingo Swann or Dr. Stephen Greer? Remote viewing practices. I think I practiced back in the day Ingo Swann. That's the one that I think he wrote a book called How to Preserve the Psychic Child. And in that, I think he had some methods of remote viewing. So I think Ingo Swann is who I have really, practiced with. So yeah, I don't necessarily do remote viewing practice. I don't practice it really. It's very clairvoyant. It's like pure clairvoyance. And so it can be a really good practice in clairvoyance, and very evidential, right? People, yes, that green bush is there. Yes, that red brick is there, and so it can build your confidence, in what you're seeing for sure. Paula Jimenez, hello. I have always struggled with social anxiety, communication, expressing myself. Lately, it has really been present in my life. Do you have any advice on how to best work with social anxiety? I was kind of talking about social anxiety a little bit earlier. Um, and it might be that you have some stuff in your chart down there in the third house too, that is, it might be kind of a karmic thing. But lately, social anxiety for me really kicks up when I'm in an ungrounded state. It can happen if I've had like a deep healing and I really just need to kind of go inward and there's lots of people talking to me, but it can also happen when I'm in a more mental place and I'm not getting as much spiritual work done or I'm not getting as much exercise. That's just how it happens for me. Social anxiety doesn't really come up when I'm in a really grounded place. I'm feeling strong. Honestly, you know what I like? I just have these right here. They're right here on my desk. So I'm just going to show these to you. And I am not affiliated with them. This is just what I use because I like them. But if you have heard, it's probably backwards. It's backwards on my screen. But if you have heard of Findhorn, it is a place in Scotland that does flower essences. And I get their kits, especially whenever they run sales. I just get their whole kits. And this one is for it aids different emotions, peace, resonance, power, clarity, and they have whole kits on different ones like fear, oversensitivity. And so sometimes with flower essences, you kind of take them every day and they build up over like 3 weeks because they're very subtle. So I like flower essences for social anxiety. I just have to kind of stay on top of my own energetic hygiene. So I have to keep a balance in my work and my spiritual practice. I also have to keep my house clean and organized. That ungrounds me also. And so I find that a balance between all of these things, my life, my daily life, my chores, have to be in balance with my spiritual life and my kind of physical health. So social anxiety and expressing yourself also can be for me adrenal overworking, like adrenal fatigue. And so I like to support my adrenals. I take adrenal supplements, adrenal herbs like ashwagandha, really kind of bring down my it like brings down anxiety. So ashwagandha works for me. It also builds up in your system over time. It's not necessarily like a super quick fix, but it does really help me if I stay on top of it. So ashwagandha, flower essences, as well as grounding practices. Renelle, Venus in Leo in the 10th. Yeah. So the 10th is career. So Venus in Leo in the 10th house is people, it's like people want to help you in your career. It's almost like friends in high places or mentors, particularly maybe women mentors that really kind of bring you up to the next level. You've probably had just like a lot of help and gifts that kind of further your career, your work. And when I say career, I also mean social kind of position, social standing, social reputation, fame. That is the 10th house. So think career like dreams. Sixth house is more career like work and 10th house is more career like dreams, social standing, reputation. So that's a really beautiful place. It's a feminine leader. So beautiful. It's one of the best places actually, I feel like, for Venus to be. There's no bad place for Venus, but Venus in the 10th really helps out with your dreams. Hi, Tyler James. What's a good way to approach past life work? You know, I personally like past life regression. It is something that I do. I do sessions with this. I couch it with other kind of spiritual techniques like, pulling in your guides or your guidance system to help the process. I feel like it also helps kind of heal the process whenever we see past lives, because often we can see past lives or in dreams, or whatever. If you watch a lot of Scottish Netflix shows, you may have had a past life in Scotland. So you can kind of discover, you can kind of tell what your past lives were by looking around you, seeing the things that you're into, seeing the things that you're drawn to. That will often tell you your past lives. But there are also past lives. You can see a lot of past life information from your astrology chart. And that's just more complicated, unless you study astrology. There's just more to that. But yeah, I would look up past life regression. Oh, and preparedness for a past life session. I would just really go into it with no expectation. I think everyone tells me. I think not a single person has told me that they were not afraid. So everyone is like, I'm a little nervous. Everyone's kind of nervous about the process. Thinking back, I was too. I don't remember that anymore, but thinking back when I first started, I was also nervous about the process. What happens is that our ego feels healing coming, and our ego kind of gets, nervous about losing some of those old attachments. The ego likes things to stay the same, and when it feels its impending change, it gets a little it kind of tries to keep you the same. So if you're feeling butterflies or just kind of like weird about it, feel it and just do it anyway, because that is so common. Every single person like kind of feels weird about it. Don't drink coffee or a lot of stimulants beforehand. You want to be able to relax. So it's just a relaxed state that you get into with help, and you kind of, it's self-trust. And when you have someone helping you, you can go a lot deeper than when you do it on your own. Although you can absolutely meditate and ask, show me my past life, and watch and notice those, what you're given, see what you see. So you can try that too. Yeah. Moon Queen, do you ever feel out of time? I feel like I constantly have to be on, running really fast, or I'll lose my eye. It makes me crash and burn. Any tips on how to fix? So, out of time and feeling like you have to be on, kind of does feel a little bit like adrenaline, like too much adrenaline, cortisol in the body, like you're kind of like stuck in fight or flight. And sometimes what that can be done is by kind of implanted some sort of program that keeps you in this survival mode. We want to that sounds like survival mode. Feeling out of time is a state of anxiety. And so being stuck in survival mode there's just a lot of things that could cause that. Obviously, trauma is the biggest one. Trauma causes us to get stuck in survival mode. And if we, can't kind of come down out of it, we get kind of that feeling like you're out of time, you have to go really fast. It feels like you have a lot of energy also running through you. And so that it's compounded. And so it's like there's like trauma kind of compounded, and there's emotions that want to be felt so that you don't have to run so fast, right? Because it's about being still with them. But I know that feeling of feeling like you constantly have to be on. It's kind of that to me is the masculine on overdrive, the masculine kind of overbearing the feminine. And so balancing, even your feminine energy. Time and timelines is also a very masculine sort of energy, you know? So feeling like you have to rush, or hustle the universe kind of thing is that striving, that pushing. Gallbladder, even, maybe even like a gallbladder liver flush could be something you could look into for that. But definitely, and adrenal supplements, definitely ashwagandha could help. I would, yeah, there's a lot of mindfulness meditation, getting back into your body, getting back into your feminine energy. That's what I would do. And also, and balancing out the parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system. Okay, because really, until we stay still enough and stay mindful enough with our trauma to kind of feel it, we do have to kind of run ahead of it. And sometimes that can really keep us stuck where we just keep running forever. So stopping, and facing kind of what it is that's kind of after us is the way through, is the way out. That's why they say the only way out is through. So, yeah, original angel. Where should we look in the chart for confidence blocks? You know? Okay. Confidence, lots of water, charts with a lot of water or people that have lots of water signs do tend to struggle with confidence. And then hard aspects to water signs is often confidence blocks. Hard aspects to Leo is a confidence block because Leo is all about confidence. Leo can also be some of the most insecure energy in the zodiac too, just because, think of the cowardly lion. When Leo is out of balance, it goes into the cowardly lion from the Wizard of Oz. And so look at Leo and any hard aspects. Hard aspects are squares and oppositions. So that was is what I would see as for confidence blocks. Yeah, so if your Chiron is in Leo, yeah, it means kind of like wounding there, wounding in the confidence, wounding in leadership, being a leader, and then having kind of wounds around being a leader. With Pisces Sun, as a Pisces, Pisces are some of the most sensitive, people, sensitive but creative people. And so yeah, that can be an interesting dynamic. I know that Pisces tend to avoid or hide rather than, face things, and so that can, if we make a habit out of avoiding, then that can start chipping away at our confidence because then we don't feel like we can be safe to show up. And so it might be a little bit of the feel the fear, but do it anyway practice that you might have to kind of get into to practice, like, okay, I'm gonna face this. And I totally identify with you here, and that's kind of what I had to do. I think I even read the book, feel the fear and do it anyway, just to get into habits of understanding that avoidant tendency is there, and then but I have to, I'm going to feel fear doing things that are new, and then I just doing them anyway builds confidence for the next time. I mean, sitting here and doing this with you all is testament to that. I was so afraid that I like my internet would like blow out, the other ones that I would do, but I kept showing up. I and also letting go of perfectionism. Like, don't allow yourself to be like, I'm not going to do anything unless it's perfect. You have to kind of throw it out. You have to be kind of like, I have to do it now no matter where it is, and not in a way that's like hustling or pushing, but there is a little bit. Pisces suns might always feel like you're having to push yourself. So just know that, um, because that's okay. At least until you kind of build up that confidence, and then you don't feel like you're having to force and push. So yeah, yeah. If Eh, and feeling like everyone is amazing. I also Pisces also really have to be careful if you're a Pisces moon, Pisces sun, if you have a lot of water, Pisces, or really anyone. Anyone could also benefit, but Pisces especially tend to compare themselves to other people. And when we're in the world of social media and the world of Zoom and not in face-to-face activity as much, that is kind of when we tend to get more ungrounded and tend to see the world through the fake lens of social media, which is not, and then compare ourselves thus when that's not true. It's not accurate. Um that's not accurate. And so sometimes stepping back from social media or from looking at other things, or participating in a lot of other people's work or other whatever it is you're comparing yourself to, kind of taking a step back from that can really help you gain your own footing and build your confidence back, you know? And that's it's kind of self-care. It's building that boundary back. Yeah, it would be neat to see how this group's charts correspond. Absolutely. We would probably all have different things in the fixed stars, right? If you have Gemini around 21 to 28 degrees of Gemini, that's Orion and Capella. You know, you have 12 to 14 degrees of Cancer is Sirius. So there's probably a lot of these kind of higher connections, and we probably all have something, harmonizing in a resonant way. That's kind of what charts do. There is some sort of resonance with them. What do you love most about astrology? How has it transformed your life? Yeah, so what I love most about astrology is it gives a sort of container to my intuition. That's just my personal thing. I love the planets. I've always been kind of space girl, planet girl. I've always loved the stars. That's just always been who I am. And I really love kind of pulling everything, and so many cultures and so many esoteric study has a basis in astrology. There's just so much you can do with it. Connect it to herbalism, connect it to alchemy, magic. There's so many things where you have to kind of start with astrology. And I really like connecting it with herbalism because it's so grounding. Astrology is very mental, and herbalism kind of grounds where you can kind of treat the things that you see in the chart. And I really like that personally. So that is how it has transformed my life. And I just kind of fell into it. So I had, a reading with a really, with a professional astrologer, and then we became friends, and he started, teaching me astrology, and I just sort of fell into it and became it sort of gave form and container to my intuition rather than just allowing my intuition to kind of be everywhere. It focused it. So that's what I think astrology can do, is it can kind of and focus you in on, in a way to use your intuition. It's like a container. Yeah. And happy solar return, Dana. Today is your birthday. Happy birthday. Beautiful. Jojo Bean, what would you say is your most influential past life? I feel like my most there's so many influential past lives. It's hard. They kind of come forward in prominence depending on what I'm going through. But my most influential past life is right now, I can say, is going to be my so there's a couple that are, popping up to this question, but the one in Egypt, the priestess past life in Egypt, where, we were actually channeling down, and opening up portals and channeling in high beings to kind of heal and uplift the earth. We knew we had work to do to uplift the earth. And the same thing we were doing in Greece, kind of in a later date. And this Egypt, Greece, it all dovetailed off of the one that I remember from Lemuria, where it was actually in water. So there was this crystal pyramid and water underneath it. And it was like white crystal. And then we would change our bodies and go down into the water. It was like a portal, I think, of some sort. And then there was like a dome under the water where we would swim, and there was an entire civilization under there. And we would take knowledge and emotional cleansing and clearing, and we would take it back up and share it. So those kind of are some of my favorite past lives to remember when it comes to using these things again, and kind of what I like to bring forward energetically. So can you help me understand what it means when so many people talk about the age of Aquarius that we just entered? Is that like the mundane astrology you were talking about? So the age of Aquarius are actually the epochs or the epics. And we go through these ages and they shift about every 2000 years. And this is something, we go through larger cycles, like we're in the Kali Yuga cycle now, which are larger cycles of these smaller cycles that are within them. And the epoch that we're in now is the age of Aquarius. And so we just came out of Pisces. Like in Christianity, they have the fish, which symbolizes Pisces, and then Jesus says, "I will be with you always, even until the end of the age," or even until the end of the age of Pisces. And so that whole idea that the age of Pisces was about religion and spirituality and really having a religious cycle. And now the age of Aquarius is all about autonomy. So now we're coming into an autonomous, independent cycle rather than having to kind of fit in and be religious as our spirituality. We're coming into independence. Everyone is, yeah, epochs. That's what we've hit some, and people are, the jury's out on exactly when that was. I've heard as early as like 1915, but even as late, like they say like the 70s or the year 2000, doesn't really matter. We're here for it. We're here for the beginning of the age of Aquarius, and that's what we're all learning how to, sort of what I described at the beginning, how to come out of religion, like being kind of spoon fed to you, and we're all learning how to kind of pull in our own spirituality, like what works for us and what doesn't. It could be that you still connect with the beauty of what Jesus has, which is so beautiful. I mean, to me it's very Venusian, it's very Pleiadian, and I love it, but it's also fraught with a lot of with trauma. I mean, but not Jesus, what was done with it, what was done with religion and the rules. It's the rules that we are throwing out. Aquarians throw out rules. They're the rebels. So we're kind of moving into this. We've seen it with like all like the civil rights, uprising. We're making things better. We're rebelling. And so with this rebellion, we are rising. We're clearing out the old. We're rebelling. We're making things new. We're making things better, independent, our own, all of that. Yes. Yep. So everyone, I think that is it. Let me know if there's anything that I forgot. Hello, Cosmic Medium Grace Lannon. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Just let me know if there's anything I forgot. I think that I covered everything that I wanted to. Let me just check my notes. Make sure. Yeah. Yeah, something that I mentioned about the other side and the planets, something that I do want to kind of finish on is talking about why the planets matter, why the planets and why space and why even really astrology matters, is because on the other side, and this is something that my cousin, my dad's cousin, actually recently passed, was in his 70s or 80s. And he told me, he went kind of through, he showed me, and I blogged about this on my Instagram if you haven't seen it. So I won't get into that too much now, but that what he started saying was after you reach a certain kind of point in your trajectory, that's when you start going to the planets. So it's like the higher spheres of the other side. So that is why I think the planets matter, is because they carry the energy of of energies that we have mastered. And so in between our lives, in between our lifetimes, it's almost like we get to as far as where we like left off, and we kind of ping through this cul-de-sac, this neighborhood of planets in our immediate vicinity. And then at a certain point, after we've kind of mastered each energy, maybe we've incarnated there, or maybe we've just kind of mastered that energy, mastered, say, Martian energy on Earth, right? We fought, for what was right, and put ourselves, kind of on the line for people that couldn't. That's what I would call mastering Martian energy on Earth. But if once we have done that, it's like we have freedom to kind of go wherever. We're given more sort of astral planetary freedom. And the planets on the other side aren't the planets that we're seeing through our telescopes. They're in a different dimension. So that's where you see kind of the beings when people say, like, I have the Venusian higher self. That's what that means. They're seeing them from a higher dimension. It's very readily available when you're crossed over. And that's where a lot of these rishis, masters, avatars, they come from those planes. That's why it feels alien. People talk about aliens, and really, aliens are very human. Humans are very alien. So when it comes to aliens and people from other planets, a lot of it has to do with us. A lot of it has to do with places that we have already been ourselves. And it might not feel like there's any similarity when you see someone with a blue face, and white hair, like standing next to you, like covered in gold, and smiling and beaming and like bringing this bright light. You can feel, okay, there's something there. They might not be human, but there's something that they bring that's really beautiful, that's higher to this third dimension. It's about mastering really the dimensions living here. We're here to kind of, they say we're here to master this plane. We're here to master the third dimension, material world, creating on the material. And so much of creating on the material means letting go, because material and density is when we start grasping and holding, and we're getting into like density, and we have to remember that we can let go, that we're safe, because a lot of density is, there's danger to density. There's danger to being in a body. We have to let go and trust, and remember that trust, and kind of unwind all of what Buddhists call sankharas, unwind the traumas. And we do that through learning to trust, through relaxing, releasing, and controlling the mind is really how we have to do it now, especially because we're in such a mental society, in such a mental epoch. The Aquarian epoch is very mental, very cerebral, brilliant, the genius, channeling. But it is also very easy to kind of unground. We're not necessarily in those ages where we're, dancing in a fairy ring, with flowers in our hair, barefoot anymore. We're here using the mental body more. So the challenge is greater. We're here kind of stepping up each challenge and getting better at it each time. So I will leave you with that idea. And I thank you, everyone, for tonight. That was really fun. I had a great time. Thank you all for your questions. You all are all brilliant and beautiful. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Elfern. Thank you, Original Angel, Renelle, Indie Era, Bliss Lee, Blue Alchemist, Jojo Bean, Affiliate Power Source, Cosmic Medium, Grace Lannon, Moon Queen. I hope you all have a great night. Sending you so much love. And Tyler James and Ian Cullen. Thank you, guys. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I will see you next time. Be looking out on my newsletter. I usually send out when I'm doing my lives on my newsletter, or I will post usually on Instagram and Facebook, so you can connect there. And also, don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested in the beginners or the advanced intuition development Zoom groups. Reach out and let me know if you're interested, so I can put you on the list before I put it up on my website. See what kind of interest we have for both levels. And then the ongoing advanced one is every other Monday night starting in September. So have a great night. Bye.